Over the last 48 hours, Obsidian have provided a masterclass in not just how to destroy the reputation of their upcoming game in Avowed, ruin any hype that was possibly there, but they've also managed to tank and just crumble the integrity and the reputation of their own studio that's been operating for 20 plus years now. They've totally tanked it, possibly beyond repair. We'll see what happens. To basically own the chuds, it seems like. That seems to be the logic behind it. And I'm going to recap a little bit so you know everything that's going on. Some of this has been going on for a couple of days, but I'm going to focus on a lot of new developments, new stuff that's come up about this. Essentially, there was the whole pronoun thing with Avowed. That sort of blew up. Elon Musk was tweeting about it. Mark Kern, so that did the rounds on X. And some Obsidian developers got upset. They insulted Elon Musk. They called him a shit or something like that. From there, some people started to dig into these various Obsidian developments, dig into their history, and someone managed to find this. I've actually seen this tweet from Mr. Matt Hansen, art director at Obsidian. I've seen this tweet a while ago, so it's been out there, but it's really blowing up now because we're just at a point where people are sick of this crap, sick of the identity politics, and basically racism from people like this. So the tweet that was dug out from this Obsidian developer, it said, "Reminder to black artists out there who are looking for portfolio reviews or job advice. My DMs are open, and you will always have my priority. We've got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods." What was most interesting about this, it's not like it's just one employee who's openly racist at Obsidian and people are just singling him out. A lot of senior people, and I mean, this guy is senior, he's the art director. He employs people, which we'll get into later because there's more to that. But a lot of senior people, including Josh Sawyer at Obsidian, who's very high up. Like, he directed New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, and so on. He's retweeting this. So are other Obsidian developers. And it's kind of funny because this original tweet, like, it went up during the whole Black Lives Matter thing, so back then it was socially acceptable, like, come on, we've got a virtue signal now, this is our chance. So they were putting things like that out there, and they were getting credit for it back then, like, that was the brave thing to do. But you look back now, when the dust has sort of settled, now it's just blatantly racist, where it's like, we're only going to look at people of this skin color and everyone else is out of bounds, especially you crusty white dudes. So now he's being called out. Again, Elon Musk jumped onto it. I think he even sent it to the CEO of Microsoft. So Obsidian might have a bit of a spotlight on them for all the wrong reasons. And I mean, if you were being generous, you could read this tweet and you could argue that, oh, he's just talking about his private life, that in his spare time, he's only going to review black people's ass in the game industry and no one else's. He's not talking about his role at Obsidian. He's not excluding people based on skin color and blatantly engaging in racism within the hiring practice. No, you can't prove that. But again, the retweets from other employees, what it shows is everything that I was concerned about with Dragon Age the Veilguard. It's not just that the pronouns are in Avowed, for instance. It's not just the weird NPCs, the non-binary characters in the Veilguard. It's that they represent the mindset of the developers. And Obsidian, BioWare, they're basically cults at this point, and their way of thinking, it's basically rotten, and all of that festers into their games. It makes their games worse than they need to be. Like, there's a reason that Mass Effect 10, 15 years ago, or Fallout New Vegas from Obsidian 10, 15 years ago, were normal games that were fun to play because the culture of the studio hadn't been destroyed yet. This mindset, where it's 100% identity politics, engaging in racism openly and being patted on the back for it, that's what's gotten us and the game industry to this point. Something needs to change. So it's good that Obsidian are being called out for it. Like, I've spoken about this now a couple of times, that I thought that the whole pronoun thing would kind of just blow over and it wouldn't affect things too much, given I didn't think like Dragon Quest 3 suffered that much because of the Type A, Type B bodies or whatever it was. I didn't think it'd be such a big deal given the Veilguard stands out like a sore thumb. Concord, just the pronouns don't seem like the biggest thing. But now Obsidian have literally put a target on their back, and people have had it now. Like, no one was excited for Avowed as it is. At best, it's like bargain bin material. I've said that it looks a little bit better than it maybe did a year ago, but it doesn't matter. It still looks much worse than other promising games. So when you've got any negativity floating around that game, it's just going to be a flop. It's not going to do well. And given that Microsoft have shut studios down for less, like Tango Gameworks, who made Hi-Fi Rush, was a pretty well-reviewed game. People seemed to like it. It didn't have any of this sort of controversy. They still shut that team down for poor performance. So, I mean, Obsidian, I can't see Avowed doing that well. What have they got after that? Outer Worlds 2? I mean, does anyone care, really? Things just aren't looking too rosy for Obsidian. And honestly, the backlash on X, like Elon Musk tweeting, Microsoft CEO, that stuff's all fine, but something's come out that I think is even more damning and may actually just spell doom in the near future for Obsidian. Like things are not looking too good at all, because Chris Avellone, who is a veteran of RPGs, an Obsidian veteran as well, I believe he was there pretty much from the start. He was there for years through New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity, and then he left or something. I think they didn't end on the best of terms. But he's been really damning with some tweets that just really expose not just Obsidian. He even manages to throw BioWare under the bus as well. And I'm all for it. Like, I'm glad he's being honest and upfront, because this crap has clearly been going on. It's not just woke stuff in video games and the actual content being in the game. It's the fact that development teams, the culture is just completely gone. It is rotten, it needs to go, and management need to take accountability to clean out this rot. Start again if you have to. You need to get people in who are actually passionate about video games, doing a good job. A little off topic, but I keep hearing about how Unreal 5 is the worst engine in the world, and that's why all these games are like janky and there's glitches and everything's a mess. It's not Unreal 5, I can tell you that. It's because the people working on these games, they're incompetent, they're bad at their job, and most of them are getting hired not based on merit, based on politics. And being yes men, yes women, agreeing with the management. That's basically it. So these tweets from Chris, he jumps in here and Chris is just awesome. He's done such good work, and it's really sad that the game industry threw him under the bus because of allegations that were proven false in court. So he's got a bit of a bone to grind, understandably, and that may be why he's coming out with some of this as well. He says here, based on recent news, if you were rejected from an art position at Obsidian in the past few years, call a lawyer, discrimination in hiring, because especially for a Microsoft studio, this can ensure that you don't need to apply for a job ever again. Now, again, he's got insight. He used to work at Obsidian, and I have a feeling he's saying this because he knows that this sort of stuff was going on. He mentions it a little bit later, but I don't think he's a super political person. He just wants to make the best game possible. Like, this is the sort of person we want. We don't sort of want the other extreme where it's like right-wing politics throughout games, like read the Bible and stuff like that. But that's not necessary. We just want people who are focusing on the game first, the integrity of the game. That's really it. And I think he's someone like that. But he's seen what's gone on, and he's probably just been powerless to stop it. So that's why he's calling it out. And he's also sort of saying, like, Microsoft, huge company, they're going to settle immediately if this actually has any weight. And he thinks it does. It does have credibility. And it shouldn't cost you a cent to initiate legal action. The lawyers will know what the case is worth. They'll do the heavy lifting. This has nothing to do with his politics, but I believe strongly that hiring discrimination for any reason isn't something the industry should tolerate. I hope you agree. I think like 99% of people do. It's the weirdos at Obsidian, at teams like BioWare, who don't agree. That's why they need to be cleared out. Someone mentions they were actually rejected for an art position at Obsidian, and Chris says, let me know how it goes, without violating attorney-client privilege. Someone sort of calls that out to sort of say, oh, well, maybe you were rejected for real reasons. But Chris does chime in to say, no, this was definitely going on. Like, I've seen this stuff go on. And then he mentions, I don't have wings. I'm not a right winger, just being the same extreme from the other side. I just hate discrimination in hiring over a person's skills. And that may even be kind of personal for him, because like he was getting thrown off games. Like he was gonna write for some good games, like Dying Light 2, I think it was. And then they got rid of him because of unproven, turned out to be totally false lies, those allegations that I mentioned. So Dying Light 2 is worse because they got rid of Chris for no real reason, and probably brought someone in who was much worse than him in the writing department. So yes, people should be getting hired on merit, nothing else. And I mentioned the BioWare part, so he actually says here, this is really damning. I had an experience with a BioWare producer who showcased the full extent of their hiring practices, and it's a story for another day, but definitely was cause for a lawsuit. So obviously, some idiot at BioWare was basically out in the opening thinking he's saving the world by most likely telling Chris, oh, we're not hiring white people anymore. We're doing the good thing. We're fighting the good fight. It's only people of color, people with the right pronouns in their bio. We're certainly not going to be hiring on merit based on skill. Those are old traditions. Those are racist. Those are sexist. We're moving on to the new world. And now we've actually seen, it's come full circle, what's happened with this mindset. We've gotten Dragon Age the Veilguard. Even before that, we had Mass Effect Andromeda. That's the BioWare world. That's the bizarro world that these people want us to get to, where every game's like the Veilguard, because that's what this sort of studio culture leads to. Bad games, unplayable games, embarrassing games that are at best meme content online. But some of us actually want to still have fun and actually play video games. So get rid of this. I'm glad that Chris is calling it out. And he also mentioned as well the whole art director thing. So I think some people kind of trying to claim that the art director who said that he was only going to be reviewing black people's work, no crusty white people, and people sort of trying to say, oh, it's just one person, that's not reflective of the whole team. But he mentions, and he's got the industry knowledge, he's not just YouTuber pulling it out of their ass, he mentions any professional art director is 100% involved in hiring art applicants. He mentions that someone said art directors aren't even in charge of hiring, but him, studio video game veteran, says professional art directors absolutely are in charge of hiring. So this clown, who originally said this about reviewing black artists' portfolios, he's hiring people at Obsidian. He's in a very senior role, and he's got a whole team under him where he's had the final say on who actually gets brought in. So you've got to think about, again, that studio culture. These people who he likes, anyone who this clown likes, is just not going to be competent. They're not going to know what they're doing. This person has the worst possible judgment in the world. They don't think that you should hire based on merit. So get him out. I want to just end with this as well, because Josh Sawyer is one of the last respected voices at Obsidian left. Like, Josh is another veteran like Chris Avellone, but he's actually employed at Obsidian. Again, he directed New Vegas, Pillars of Eternity, and so on. So I think a lot of people are hoping that this guy might be holding the fort. Like, at least he's there. If everything else has gone to shit, at least we've got Josh. The sad truth is, maybe he used to be cool, he used to do good things, he was focused on making the best game above anything else. But these days, he seems to be living in clown world as much as anyone else, as much as that art director too. Because again, he retweeted this, the whole black artists only thing, and he did that 4 years ago. So he was down the rabbit hole even back then, obviously it being peak BLM, he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he wasn't. That's a mistake. He says here on Blue Sky, of course, he stopped posting regularly on Twitter. Anyone insane is here. It's a really nice filter. And someone mentioned, I heard Avowed is woke. Is it true? New Vegas was so good, but I don't have any hope for this one. And then Josh Sawyer says, turning a big dial that says New Vegas woke level, and constantly looking back at the audience for approval. So he's basically angry at anyone who's questioning the pronouns in Avowed and all of that. But that's not even the most damning thing. I managed to find this. Josh posts a lot on Blue Sky. He bangs on and on. But I noticed this, where someone says, Sean's video about the Stellar Blade controversy is real good if you've got 2 hours. And then I looked into that. So this video, this 2-hour Stellar Blade controversy video, it's basically trying to say that anyone online who was talking about how weirdos were raging about Stellar Blade, game journalists were crying about Stellar Blade because it had attractive female characters. It wasn't shoving in Concord style stuff. They were just trying to make a good game. 2-hour video based on that. And it's trying to debunk it all. Like, no, the game journalists weren't angry about that. Grifters were trying to trick you. It's like, no, back then, if you open your eyes, you could see. The weirdos were melting down about Stellar Blade. So someone makes this 2-hour video to try and debunk that, apparently. And then Josh says that he watched it yesterday. So this guy, senior director at Obsidian, spends his free time watching a 2-hour video that's trying to say that people exposing Stellar Blade outrage that was absolutely going on. These people were losing their minds. That it's apparently fake. So that's sort of the world that Josh lives in. Like, he's totally down that rabbit hole. I'm not remotely convinced that if he was leading a game, he wouldn't be enabling people like Matt, the art director. Like, that's why Matt is still there. Like, these people like Matt. He's a valuable member of the team, despite not just, like, differing views to maybe you or I. Like, it's fine if he's got his political views. But when he's actively engaged in kind of just promoting a discriminating culture where you promote people, you encourage people of one skin color over the other, and I don't even need to do that thing where it's like if you replace the word black with the word white, he would have been out on his ass yesterday. Like Elon Musk tweeting the CEO of Microsoft, and it was about that, then absolutely he would have been gone. But because it's promoting the right people still, I don't think that anything is necessarily going to happen. But you never know. With the culture, I think, shifting a bit and more of these things getting exposed, and I think more people voicing their opinion rather than maybe staying silent like they would have 4 years ago during peak BLM where no one would dare, maybe there will be some consequences. I think it's valid consequences. I don't think it's a witch hunt on this guy necessarily, because again, he's not just voicing a political opinion, which would be fine, like he's actively trying to discriminate within the video game industry. For Avowed though, I think it's doomed. Like the amount of controversy this is generating, it filters through to the normies, so even just regular people who aren't looking this stuff up, they're not that aware of it, they just start to get that inkling, they get that feeling from all the word of mouth that's going on, that Avowed is made by clowns. It's similar to Dragon Age the Veilguard. No one wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. When your game is tainted like that, that's kind of when it's over, because when the normies have no interest in buying it, that's when you fail. These video game studios, these big budgets, they need that positive word of mouth for games to succeed. That's sort of the new era. A big marketing campaign funded by Microsoft, that doesn't sell games. That's why Microsoft Studios have had so many flops. They need a win in the word of mouth department, and Obsidian have squandered that because the people working for them, they're idiots. They've cultivated a culture of morons, and they're getting what they deserve. I don't think it's going to go too well for them. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.